Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Bubler. You might think this week is devoted to listener submitted questions. Here's a few of my own that I cultivated. I have a ridiculously strong sense of smell. It's actually one of these kind of disturbing genetic traits that really, if I could have changed anything, I probably would have changed gargantuan size and a ability to smell people at 200 feet to, I don't know, being more liked by the ladies. Let's just say what it is. This fits actually into a somewhat curious story. I was travelling around Tasmania with a university friend of mine who claimed to be a lesbian, but spent an inordinate amount of time sleeping with men, just not sleeping with me. And in this circumstance, we came to meet her grandparents, and she said to me before we arrived, could I pretend to be her boyfriend? And I thought, well, this is a somewhat awkward phase, but as it so happens, that's kind of the role that I play anyway in these strange kind of family group meetings. So when I met her grandparents, I recalled that she had told me that her grandmother had been a sniffer in the Second World War. Now, sniffers were people that had particularly good olfactory senses and were used to detect gas attacks primarily, in not necessarily frontline troops, but troops that were slightly behind the front lines but still would come in contact with gas. And the nature of the sniffer is that they could detect the gas even when it was, 3/4 of a mile away. And we tested various olfactory kind of things, toing and froing, and I realized that I probably could have been a sniffer in the military, that this actually was a role that I was destined to play. And my ability to smell curious things and a sense of taste which enables me to kind of dissect various foods made me realize that all this time that I'm spending associated with, tracking and avoiding and these kind of things was actually probably also based on my sense of smell as well. Unfortunately, the modern-day military doesn't employ sniffers anymore, and I think that's probably one of the reasons that I'm so dead against it. I'd love to be a sniffer in the military, and quite frankly, I think my natural abilities should be utilised to their maximum. Unfortunately, as a lowly iOS engineer here in the Bay Area working for Netflix, all I can do with my ability to smell at great lengths is establish when lunch has been served 3 floors down, roughly what's available for lunch, and things which really don't enable me to survive too well in general urban circumstances. Truth be told, I can smell fire at a good distance. I have an ability to identify particular sulfurous compounds and other things, much to the amusement of my wife. But in terms of the modern-day military, my abilities are just wasted. I don't know actually what use having a good sense of smell is really in society. When I lived on campus, I was able to walk through the halls of the environment and identify exactly who had walked through them up to half an hour's time, maybe even a little bit more on cooler days when the air was slightly crisper. But these abilities are not really useful in general day-to-day life. I was, however, last week able to identify a bowl of potato chips that had been left for our fellow co-workers, exactly what the flavour of potato chips were. And when I guessed correctly, they were chicken. Actually, they were buttery chicken, but mainly they were chicken. The group of co-workers erupted with glee, and I pointed out in my somewhat sober state that unfortunately this was not an Olympic sport. Tom Bartley in San Jose, signing out.